There was a packed house here at the Supreme Court today for a very historic day to determine whether or not the former president can seek his old office. The 14th Amendment of the United States, and specifically Section 3, does ban insurrectionists from holding office. Now, the Colorado Supreme Court found, first of all, that Donald Trump had engaged in insurrection through his behaviour related to the January 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol, that he'd done so after taking the oath of office when he became the US president, and that those two things together meant that he was barred from being the US president again. The argument put today by Donald Trump's lawyers was that, first of all, there was no insurrection as the original framers of the 14th Amendment would have imagined it. Instead, it was just an illegal riot. And that the other parts of this 14th Amendment and Section 3 don't relate specifically to the office of the US president. And they further argue that it should not be up to the individual states to determine this, and that although this particular part, and this is dense legal argument, but this specific section does ban people from holding offices, it doesn't stop them from running for offices. And as part of this section, there is also the ability for Congress, a vote of 2/3, to actually allow somebody to run for offices. So the counter argument put by the lawyer representing the voters of Colorado who brought the original suit, they argued that the Colorado Supreme Court was right to find that this was an insurrection, that individual states in America have every right to interpret these laws and decide how the presidential election in their particular state is carried out, and they have broad parameters to do so, and that they believe the Supreme Court of the United States should uphold the decision of the Colorado Supreme Court. It's a fascinating process that occurs in the US Supreme Court. You've got the 9 justices up on the bench. You've got the lawyers who stand up individually to both put an opening statement, but are then peppered with questions from the justices. And you get an indication from them about which way they might be leaning. And although it is as scientific as reading tea leaves at times, the arguments that seem to hold the greatest resonance for the justices seem to be relating to whether or not individual states could have such a big impact on a national vote, whether or not the Supreme Court of Colorado has the power to determine whether or not someone could effectively run for the presidency. And although they seemed pretty happy with the arguments put forward by Donald Trump's lawyer, happy and so that they didn't seem to push him particularly hard on any one point, when the lawyer representing the people of Colorado, the one pushing the argument that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist and should be banned, he was repeatedly peppered by questions from some justices indicating they didn't think he was adequately answering the questions. So going into today, we thought the Supreme Court would be unlikely to ban Donald Trump from actually running for the presidency, and I don't think anything has changed based on what we heard from the justices today.